Today on the TMZ Podcast.
Welcome to the TMZ Podcast. Derek and Jason here.
New digs, Derek. We're very happy to be in our new studio. Last week was tough. We were in these sound booths. It was awful.
People don't know. You just watched on YouTube or you listened to us, but we were sweating in a sound booth all last week, and now we have this beautiful new studio, and we're really excited about it.
So a couple things happening today. Donald Trump is about to be arrested for allegations that he is well, we'll talk about him in a second, but allegations stemming from his alleged $130,000 hush money payment to Stormy Daniels in the waning days of the 2016 campaign. So just before the election was going to happen in 2016, Stormy Daniels, his alleged mistress, comes forward and basically says, I'm going to tell the world what we had, troubling your marriage, obviously negative for his campaign. And he says, don't worry about it. I'll make sure you get paid.
So break it down for us, because first I want to say that we're in 2023. We've already had an entire Trump administration. He lost an election to Joe Biden, called it a big lie, stayed in the news and stayed relevant. This is Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg has been investigating this for a number of years, and the reports were that he was poised to arrest the former president, and I would assume in a very sort of public way, perp walk him, do something with Donald Trump. Yeah. Donald Trump got wind of this and tweeted over the weekend or late last week, and he said, hey, this is a trumped up
politically motivated
attack on me, calling on his supporters to protest. This is not the way America should work. Tell me a little bit before we get into whether whether he should have been prosecuted in any way or whether he should be prosecuted. What is the case about? I think people need to be caught up.
Right. So again, it has to. So in the waning days of the 2016 campaign, Stormy Daniels comes forward. Michael Cohen, Donald Trump's then do-it-all, fix-it man lawyer,
personal lawyer,
right, writes a check to Stormy Daniels for $130,000. There's no disputing this. He wrote a check to her for $130,000 from his own personal funds, and they were, and that was hush money, and she therefore decided not to talk until after the election. Michael Cohen later testified that that was at the direction of Donald Trump, and Donald Trump later reimbursed him, and he has the receipts to show that he received a $130,000 payment from Donald Trump just after he had written the $130,000 check to Stormy Daniels. And Michael Cohen says this was reimbursement. We had agreed to this because he didn't want a payment from him to Stormy Daniels for obvious reasons. He decided to use me as an intermediary.
I was fixing something for my boss in the course of my employment, is what Michael Cohen's position is.
And he says, I did this kind of stuff all the time. Well, indications he did it all the time. Donald Trump has also denied that he had an affair with Stormy Daniels. Let's just come out right and say that part's a lie. We all know he was banging Stormy Daniels. There are photos of them together.
But there's nothing illegal about that.
But there's nothing illegal about that. There's also, it's pretty certain that the $130,000 funds paid to Michael Cohen by Donald Trump that then went to Stormy Daniels
were for the benefit of Donald Trump.
Yes. And again, there's no we're this far out. Let's not fool around. He made this payment to Michael Cohen. Yeah. In an effort to quiet Stormy Daniels. Now, again, nothing illegal about that. No. Here's where the allegations of illegality happen. There are two of them. Number one, Donald Trump apparently declared this $130,000 payment to Michael Cohen as a business expense for legal services, when in fact, the allegation is that they were hush money to Stormy Daniels.
Right. So a mischaracterization of maybe some business funds from the Trump Incorporated, Trump Inc., his business entity. You do this so that you can write it off as a business expense rather than going into
hush money payments to your mistress, not business expenses.
Yeah, they're harder to explain to your wife. So you just do it through the business, and he reimbursed him. He said, you're my lawyer. You handled a problem for me. That's part of my business, handling problems. I'm going to reimburse you from company account. That's allegedly a mischaracterization of his business records.
Now,
the bigger part, though, I think, is the
I want to say real quick, if alleged, that is in fact a crime. It's not a big crime. It's actually a misdemeanor. Yeah. To have a felony, for it to rise to a felony, you need a second crime. The second alleged crime is that Donald Trump made this payment to Michael Cohen and in turn made this payment to Stormy Daniels in an effort to bolster his campaign, which would make them donations to his campaign. And that's where you get a whole series of federal laws that overlay on top of the state laws about when it is that you can actually make a campaign contribution and how you have to treat that money.
Yeah, look, what's fascinating about this is, Donald Trump has lived a very colorful life with lots and lots of women. I assume, although I don't know, and I want to make that very clear, that he's made payments of this kind of nature a lot of times in his life, or maybe has done it before. I don't know.
There are loads of allegations that he has, that he's paid for abortions, that he's paid women to be quiet, all sorts of things. The allegations.
They're just allegations. But when he did it in 2016, while he was running for president, there was this overlay of federal election law that he had to abide by. And that is very, very serious stuff. Because if he donated to his own campaign and didn't declare that he was making a campaign contribution of $130,000, which I would imagine far exceeds the limits. You hear limits of like $2,500, $5,000. He's cutting a check for $130,000. He's going to run afoul of election law, and that's much more serious than the mischaracterization of the business records. Now I want to ask you a question because I think we'll probably have a difference of opinion. We haven't spoken about this before.
Yeah.
Why is Alvin Bragg doing this? From my perspective, this doesn't feel trumped up. It feels meritorious, and there's something to be said for people should be held accountable. No one is above the law, least of all Donald Trump, and we need to make a sort of example that we don't have in this country, people who are above the law, even presidents. However, he seems like a lame duck. He's wounded. Ron DeSantis is on the rise. Nobody really cares that much about Donald Trump.
As a matter of fact, it's bolstering his campaign a little bit.
It's bolstering it. Yeah. That's the problem, is you're resurrecting. You put the paddles to a guy who was already dying in a ditch, and now he gets to say to his 35% of the country that still adore Donald Trump, hey, protest, protest, protest.
It proves what he's been saying
it.
all along, which is he is the unfailing target of these Democrats who just want to attack him for anything.
And by the way, do you think it's a misstep?
I somewhat do. And here, but I'm torn. As you said, I don't think there's any doubt that any reasonable person could doubt that Donald Trump did this for the reasons that Alvin Bragg says. He did it for illegal purposes. He didn't properly keep it in his books.
He thought he was above the law.
He thought he was above the law. And all that's really annoying. And it's the most annoying thing about Donald Trump, right? We can all disagree or agree on his policies, his politics, whether or not he's been victimized. He's sort of really annoying in that he always plays the victim.
Yes.
And he thinks he can get away with everything. Okay, we all get that. So what do we have here then? We have a prosecutor. There's two things at play here. Number one, he's getting he's a DA, he's an elected official. And this is red meat to his core supporters in New York City. The other thing is that the other crimes that Donald Trump is alleged to have committed, from stealing classified documents to committing all sorts of heinous acts as it relates to January 6th, and on and on and on, that he may well never be prosecuted for. Even if he were, though, the next president, whether it be Mike Pence or Ron DeSantis or maybe even Joe Biden, would have the power to pardon him.
Yes.
If he is convicted for a state law crime, the president of the United States has no power to pardon him at all, and no governor of the state of New York is ever going to pardon him.
Right.
So he is stuck with this conviction hanging over his head. And now there are a lot of defenses that Donald Trump has. He's going to argue he never had an affair with her. He's going to argue that he made the payments believing they were legal services. He's going to argue that the statute of limitations has run. It's been 7 years. The statute of limitations is 5. There are exceptions when somebody is out of the state, and he was serving as president for 4 of those years. So
those are legal defenses. He's also going to call it a witch hunt publicly the entire time to his supporters, and it has the whiff of Al Capone going up for tax fraud, right, after killing people. This guy maybe stole classified documents. That seems serious to people, but he's going to go down over mischaracterizing a payment to a former affair. It's going to feel not big enough to people, and they're going to say it feels trumped up as a result.
It does. One other thing that I found interesting here is he's come out over the weekend, and he has called for a full-scale protest. There's going to be some rioting. This is exactly what the allegations are about January 6th, that he was calling people to fight for something that he believed he was righteously entitled to. I guess he believed it. I don't know if he believed it or not, that he said he was righteously entitled to, which was the election, the White House. And as a result of that, riots ensued, and people are saying you set that into motion. He's doing the exact same thing here. There's going to be
the chutzpah, after what came out from the January 6th Commission about his role in that uprising. Now, he's being careful.
I don't even fault him for it, though, really.
I don't.
He believes, and he might even have a claim that he's being targeted for political motives here.
Yes.
And therefore, he wants his supporters to
His defining characteristic, though, is shamelessness.
Yeah.
I do believe the line and all that stuff, it's a product of shamelessness. He knows the January 6th Commission. He says that was all trumped up. He's built this sort of vision of himself that is impenetrable. So when he says protest, 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 and we all wince like, ugh, didn't this go poorly last time? Not to him.
No.
Not to him. And he's like, I'm not calling for violent protest. He has things to say. He's being careful in the way that Donald Trump is careful with words, which is not very, but he's not saying, storm Alvin Bragg's office. He's just saying protest because he knows how to dog whistle. He knows how to play this game, and he is doing the exact same thing he did on January 6th, and he's hoping for the same he didn't get the result he wanted in January 6th, which was Mike Pence sort of invalidating the election, but he's hoping that maybe with my followers for a little thing like this, I can be successful with just some protests in New York. I don't need the whole country.
And the truth is that Ron DeSantis, his other political rivals, Mike Pence, have come out and said that they think that this potential arrest is politically motivated. They're sort of forced into this position if they want to curry favor with the core right. They're sort of forced to kind of denounce the arrest of Donald Trump. So
this is huge, right? I mean, Mike Pence has every reason to hate Donald Trump.
Right.
There are allegations that Donald Trump wanted him hanged for invalidating.
His supporters were screaming, "Hang Mike Pence," and Donald Trump didn't say a word about it.
And yet, Mike Pence is saying this prosecution should not happen. Ron DeSantis, is he out saying that it shouldn't happen, or he's been quiet about it? I know Pence said it.
Yeah, Pence said he didn't want it to happen.
Pence said it, and Trump is going to use all of that. He's saying, look, even my political kind of rivals, even within my own party, who would love to stab me in the back, I'm Julius Caesar, are saying that this is trumped up.
Kevin McCarthy, the Speaker of the House, Republican Speaker of the House, came out today and said, well, people really shouldn't riot. So shouldn't protest. So I don't know.
It's remarkable. I don't know where this will land. I do, from 10,000 feet above, I feel like this is a huge misstep. I really
by the
do. By the Democrats, by Alvin Bragg, by whoever you want to attribute this to, because he was lame. Donald Trump had lost his grip, and this gives him an opportunity. I don't think he'll necessarily get a stranglehold on the American public again, but he has a chance to now, and you didn't need to give it to him.
So here's the giant overlay. Prosecutions in Manhattan of these sorts of crimes take about a year to get to trial. Mm-hmm. A year from now, we will be in the throes of the 2024 presidential election. We will already had a number of primaries.
Yes.
Donald Trump could well be
running.
He could be commuting from debates, from campaign stops to court in order to answer charges against him, even during the trial. He could be testifying at his trial in the morning and then going to Des Moines to fight for votes.
Has anyone been prosecuted?
Unprecedented.
Yeah.
No former president's ever been prosecuted for anything.
That's
This is
Richard Nixon was pardoned by
Gerald Ford. To say it is unprecedented does a disservice to other unprecedented things. We are on a ledge of ledges here.
Yes.
In terms of prosecuting a former president while he's running for president again for crimes that are thin at best, allegations of crimes that are thin at best, when there's this whole host of other crimes that seem not so thin.
And he's going to stand on that debate stage and say, they are trying so hard to prevent me from being your voice of the people that they know
I'm going to win, so they're trying to quiet me.
They're trying to put me behind bars before I can represent you.
By the way,
a great message for his supporters.
At some point, DeSantis, Pence, whoever's running against him, Mitt Romney, John Kasich, whoever it is running against him, are going to have to take a stand.
Yes.
And they are not going to want to take a stand that their political opponent is being targeted. They're going to want to take a stand that he did these things.
Yeah, that's right. And it is also, just to put a final point on it, it's a little bit of a squeamish sort of position even for the Democrats. Let's say he is the nominee of the Republicans and he is up against whoever, the Democratic nominee, who's going to want to use this to say, you can't elect this crook.
Yeah.
It's a squeamish position because in this country, we proudly don't prosecute people for political reasons, and they're going to have to contend with that narrative, be it true or not, be it whether the case is meritorious or not. The motivations behind it look political. Alvin Bragg is trying to impress his constituents that he went after Donald Trump and doggedly sort of investigated him. That's a weird position for even Democrats to take, that we're proud of this prosecution. That's why I just don't think it's necessary. He was not going to win the presidency again. I thought his grip was weakening. Ron DeSantis was going to move into his place, and I think this now gives him a chance.
But I don't think Alvin Bragg is doing this in an effort to undermine him politically. Alvin Bragg's doing it to bolster himself politically. Number one, Alvin Bragg,
without question.
By the way, just so everybody knows,
a terrible
Alvin
motivation.
Bragg is not a political hack.
No.
Alvin Bragg is a serious man who, honestly, I believe, would prosecute this case against anybody.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean you have to do it for everybody.
Yes.
And it didn't mean he has to do it here. Donald Trump has skirted prosecution his whole life despite the fact he's committed innumerable crimes, as have many wealthy businessmen. We get it all.
And to your point, that is frustrating on some
It's
basic
frustrating
level
on
that a
base
man
level.
is
and
acting
Alvin
as though
Bragg,
he's above the
if you
law.
hear him talk, says this has nothing to do with politics. This has to do with the fact that we have a corrupt individual who is corrupting our laws.
It should be held accountable.
It should be held accountable like any other individual. And by the way, the first part I believe is true. Any other individual, Alvin Bragg would prosecute. I really do believe that. For these crimes, he would have been prosecuted 20 times over.
Sure, and it would have been big news.
And it wouldn't have been big news, right? It probably happened before, will happen again.
Yeah, just enforcing the law as
Just
it's written.
enforcing the law as it's written.
Anyway, we'll have to see where this plays out, but this has been, and if he does a perp walk, it's going to be extremely, regardless of where you stand, that will be
unprecedented. He said he's going to turn himself in.
Cuffed.
It'll be interesting. Hopefully, Alvin Bragg plays this right and lets him do it quietly without outside of cameras. Real quick, before we go, we got a very exciting special airing on Fox tonight that we've all been working extremely hard on.
Absolutely. It is called 9/11, the fifth plane. It's premiering tonight. It is about a potential fifth plane on 9/11 that could have taken off and taken more lives, but actually didn't. It is incredible. Jason and I have both seen this. It airs on Fox tonight at 9/8 Central.
Yep.
So check it out.
Thanks very much, everybody. Appreciate it.
All right, see you
Good
next
to be
time.
in the new studio. Thanks, guys.